to sleep at night.
No other questions from the audience. Thank you, Bobby and Chairman McMillan. That concludes the Fisheries Committee. Back to you.
Thank you, Chairman Bledsoe. We're going to move on now to Boating Law Enforcement Committee, and I'll call on Harold Cannon to head that for us.
The Boating and Law Enforcement Committee recognizes Chief Darren Ryder. I believe he has a proclamation. Do you have any pie charts, Darren? Because everybody else has today.
Thank you, Commissioner Cannon. I can assure you this will be the quickest thing you do all day.
Thank you, sir.
Proclamation 1310 will proclaim the temporary suspension of Rule 1660-2-7-.192D, which is Nickajack Reservoir. And this temporary suspension is granted with in association with the TWRE permit to the Outboard Drag Boat Association there at the Marion County Park. And it temporarily lifts the no-wake zone for October 11, 12, and 13 from the hours of 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day so they can hold their event. Y'all have seen this come through y'all before, so this is their annual event.
Darren, appreciate it. We appreciate them being prompt and getting this to us. I make a motion that we approve Proclamation 13-10, the no-wake zone at Marion County Park on Nickajack Reservoir. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor on the committee say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. It'll go before the commission tomorrow. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
At this time, the Government Relations Committee is going to meet. Chairperson Jamie Woodson has arrived.
She looks good in red.
The floor is yours.
First, Mr. Chairman, my apologies for being late. I've just come in from Nashville, and I would love for the Government Relations team, we've got a new member of the agency team, and Chris Richardson, and I know that there's a report, at least as an introduction, and so I can defer to Director Carter to introduce Mr. Richardson, or whomever you would choose.
Director Carter. State your name.
Huh? I hope so. Yeah, I'll make this very brief. You know, we started back in February trying to hire a person when Nat Johnson decided to retire to take on our legislative responsibilities, and we added some things to that. As many of you know, we talked about before, from working with state and local governments to helping us put together some messaging for some of the programs and so forth we have. And I'd like to introduce Chris Richardson to you. Most of you have already met Chris in one setting or another, but I wanted to formally do that and missed kind of his first commission meeting that he's actually been on board for this, so couldn't have picked a better one, I don't think, for him to become a part of. But anyway, Chris has been in Tennessee political arena for quite some time. And Chris, you want to say a word or two? I think the brief would be what they would be looking for.
I just have one or two pie charts. No, I really very happy to be here working for the TWRA. I'm a lifetime hunter and fisherman, very passionate about all things hunting, fishing, and boating, and can't imagine really a better place to work. So look forward to working with all of you. If I can ever be of any service to you, or if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send them my way. If I don't know the answer, I'll find it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Chris. We're glad you're here. Mr. Chairman, when Director Carter, obviously we've got a very important role in that position, and Director Carter spent a great deal of months and a lot of conversations trying to get to the right person. I've known Chris for a long time and had the opportunity to participate in the search process, and it was a very, very strong field. And I want to compliment Director Carter and his team in being very thoughtful to try to make sure there was the right fit for this position. Obviously, not only our relationships with the community at the local level as well as the state level are very, very important to be responsive and thoughtful, and I'm very excited about Chris's participation in serving this agency.
Thank you, Commissioner Woodson. And Chris, we are excited about you being on board, and I guess you got your indoctrination today. I may go on a record of having a chairman of having the longest meeting in the history of this agency, so.
You're getting there.
Well, we'll just see how the budget committee does. I'm not responsible. I'm just introducing Chairperson Jeff Griggs.
Thank you, Chairman Milton. At this time, I'd like to call Ed Carter, Executive Director. If you would come to the podium, sir. He's going to speak on proposed budget 2014-2015.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to say more about Chris, but Commissioner Woodson kind of filled you in on that, but it was a long process, and I thought maybe when the time wasn't so late, I'd fill you in more. But it really was a long process with a lot of people involved, and we were very fortunate to have Chris fill in that role, and I think he's going to do a great job. Already made a lot of rounds in the state, met a lot of people, and I think that's one of his main goals is to get to know as many people as he can, as quickly as he can. But anyway, not to belabor that, we're really proud to have him here. This is a quick update on where we are budget-wise. We have, it seems, continual process throughout the year to try to put together the agency budget, and it continually changes. And throughout the year, we will bring things to you and ask you to expand the budget. And before we get into this year's budget, I want to just mention a couple of things about that. Sometimes I think maybe people who would attend the meetings or people who watch via internet are probably thinking, boy, they don't put much thought into that. They just bring something up there and they vote it through. I just would like for anyone that's not familiar with the process to know how much time goes into the background of that before we bring expansions to you. And an expansion would be something that comes up that we're not anticipating usually. Sometimes and many times it's new money that comes into the agency through either a federal grant or some other process comes in, or sometimes it's something that breaks. You might remember over the last 2 years with all the flood waters, we had to come to the commission and ask for some expansions to fix a number of waterfowl pumps. Some of them are fairly expensive. Two of them ran us about $1.1 million last year as we tried to fix those. So when we bring those to you, there is a lot of thought that goes into, can we get some other way to do that? Is there a way to utilize what we have? And when we bring it to you, we always try to make sure you know what kind of funding process is behind all of that. So I just want to mention that just for the clarity of somebody that might not be privy to the process that we go through the commission and also through the public. Every year we bring to you in August a proposed budget, one to finalize the budget that we're currently in, which would be the 13-14 year that this fiscal year, and we'll also ask you to look and approve for a budget for the year 14-15. We've given you some budget books to look at, and as most of you know, we've had a long process to get here. We've met with the budget committee of the commission on a number of occasions, and other commissioners who were not even on the committee but had an interest would sit in and listen as we tried to figure out the process and where we're going and how much money we had to work with. We've had some bad news throughout the year, that being a loss of some federal funding because of some of our licensing structures inside our senior citizen license that was pretty expensive to us in the neighborhood of about $2 million. We were hurt 2 years in a row by floods that cost us also $1 million each year. But on the other side, the things have turned a little bit. Where our license sales this year were quite a bit up over last year as compared to the same times. We're thinking that at least is a good thing, and hopefully we'll begin to make up that. But at the same time, with the loss of that federal fund, we're staring in the face of perhaps even a loss of a greater set of federal funding, again, based on our licenses. So when we put all this together and we bring it to you, we do that with the mind of knowing that we're a self-funded agency and we have to live within the money that we bring in, and we're very cognizant of that. There are over 600 budgets inside our agency budget altogether. We've literally gone through all 600 of them, line by line. There's 25 lines in each budget, so we've gone through all of those. We've looked at trying to adjust where we can to see what we needed to do. And so today, when we bring you this budget, there's two things. We'll be bringing you the budget that we're in, the 2013-14, with a few expansions and carry forwards. And when I say carry forward, we're talking about things that weren't done last year in the budget year 12-13 that we have to bring forward into this year because they're ongoing projects or money that was set aside through some other fund that would be not very wise if we just let that go. So we're bringing forward some of those, so the carry forwards and so forth that we put together. The last, before I actually get into the real numbers, and we'll go as deep as you want to in a committee meeting here, of course, and then again tomorrow it will come up for the full commission. But we have a number of revenue sources, literally about 30 different revenue sources we work with, but we have what we call two budgets, one being our boating program, one being our wildlife program, and by state law you cannot mix those two funds. So we literally present them to you in two different forms. So I'll start with the 13-14 budget for boating, which if in your book would be on page 3. And you'll notice that there's 3 years, the 12-13, which is what we actually came up with in expenditures, the center year, 2013-2014, which is the year we're in, and then on the requested year, which is 2014-2015. I'm going to start with this year. So in the boating program, we start with a budget of $11.3 million, and with your permission, I'm going to round off here. We can obviously talk exact figures, but we're going to start with a budget of $11.3 million. We're going to add $3.7 million in carry forwards from last year for a total budget this year in boating of $15.047, or $15,047,000. Next year, as we go into 14-15, we'd be asking for a budget proposed of $11,501,000. Moving back to page 2, I'll talk about just wildlife for a second. Very similar situation, the center column, 13-14, we start with a proposed budget of $74.6 million. We're going to add $9.7 million in carry forwards for a total proposed budget at this point in this time of the year of $84.3 million. For year 14-15, the total request for that particular time is $73.3 million. I'm moving in reverse. If you go to page 1, if you add both the boating and the wildlife funds together, you come up with our total agency budget. And again, the 2013-2014 current year budget, we will start with a budget of $86 million. When we add the carry forwards from both boating and wildlife of $13.4 million, we come to a budget total for the current year of $99.4 million. Next year, in 14-15, at this particular point in time, there are no carry forwards or expansions, of course, to that budget. We'd be asking for approval of a budget of $84.8 million. Mr. Chairman, that's the highlights, but be glad to answer any questions at this time that you might have.
Director Carter, do we need to vote on both the 13-14 and 14-15, or
Yes, sir. I think that'd be preferable.
Separately?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2013-2014 budget. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the commission? Any discussion in the audience? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, I'd also like to entertain a motion to approve budget 214 through 2014 and 2015. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second? Second. Motion been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the commission? Any in the audience? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Director Carter, I think we're through with you right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all the commission members and staff who put in a lot of hours to get the budget to where it is. Appreciate that greatly.
Well, I'd like to thank you and staff as well, and I know I'd also like to thank the Budget Committee and those, as you mentioned earlier, commissioners that took the time to participate. It was a long process, and we appreciate what you do, and we support the agency. Thank you, sir. This time, I'd like to call Tim Churchill, Chief Real Estate Division. Give us a real estate report and we'll get out of here. I could have called you Gordon.
Well,
I did, didn't I?
no. Well, we've been in a state of flux the last month or so. Gordon retired, and I moved over from fisheries, and I'm doing my best to sort of figure out where in the landscape I fit. But anyway, not a lot has happened since the last report, which was back, I think, 2 months ago, besides just the normal process of getting appraisals and that sort of thing. I don't have I meant to bring a projection of the real estate report, and it's in your books, but just a couple of tracts I thought I'd mention. The first one being the Chester County tract, 300 acres. It's the third from the top. That one is getting very close to closing. There's another in Cott County, just down from it, Rankin Bottoms, WMA, great shorebird area, headwater part of the Douglas Lake. We're getting environmental review on that, and that one's getting close. Go down a couple to Fentress County, Skinner Mountain, which we're to buy from the Nature Conservancy. There's been some hang-ups on the mineral rights on that tract, and they're not sure whether they own them. They're trying to sort that out. So until they get that sorted out, we're sort of in a holding pattern. Go down several to Montgomery County, Bellamy Cave should be closing within a month, within the next month. We're just looking for a date. And then the last few, in White and Van Buren counties, several tracts at the upper end of the Caney Fork, the Big Bottom, WMA, that's getting close. We're buying that in conjunction with the Land Trust for Tennessee and Tennessee Parks and Greenways. And the last one, the Bean Switch Refuge, we're doing a land swap for a very small piece of land, and that's getting close to being completed as well. So that's it.
Alan Peterson. On the Wolf River there's 423 acres, it's a gift. That's not contiguous to the Wolf River WMA. Is that considered part of WMA, or is that just a misprint? Yeah, I don't care. Just
If I remember correctly, that's off away from the WMA, and
it's 10 or 15 miles from the WMA. So.
And we've got a bunch of properties along the Wolf River corridor they're just lumped in with miscellaneous wetlands. They're open to statewide cities back notice, but
Okay.
they're not officially part of the WMA.
They're just public hunting areas. They're not part of the WMA management.
Right.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Okay.
Any more questions from the commission? Anyone from the audience? Welcome to your new job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you there.
Not to take a lot of time, but I should have given Tim a little introduction. Most of you have met Tim over the years anyway. But didn't want you to think he was selling himself short there in terms of coming into the real estate division of the real estate program. Tim has been involved with that process for a long time. Even while he was in fisheries, he would write grants and so forth to us, especially on the North American Wetlands Conservation Act. So over 2 years, each year, we brought in over $1 million each year in grants through that program back into the land acquisition program, and that was a big deal. So he'd already worked with most of the partners that you would know, the Wolf River Conservancy, Nature Conservancy, Land Trust, the Conservation Fund. All those people know Tim already. It's not as big of a segue as he's making you believe that it is. I think he's just fudging in case he messes up. But in any case, we're really glad to have Tim. The same thing, there were some really strong candidates that applied for that job. Tim was selected out of our interview board and he's gonna do a great job.
Thank you, Director Carter, and thank you, Commissioner Griggs. I wanted to clear up, I heard a rumor there was some miscommunication about what time our meeting is tomorrow. It is at 9 o'clock. And in closing, I've got some closing comments I've written. It shouldn't take more than 15 or 20 minutes if that pleases the commission. Just kidding. See y'all in the morning at 9. Good job.